Hello there, good morning and welcome once again to That Makes Me Mad. As promised, folks, I have live in studio this morning the leader of the opposition, Mr. Philip J. Pierre, alongside MP for Castries South, Dr. Ernest Hilaire. The gentleman, as promised, are here to talk about the very, very controversial DSH, or Desert Star Holdings development slated for the town of Vieux-Fort. Gentlemen, a very, very good morning to you both.
Hi, morning, Angie, and morning to all the listeners. Yes. It's good to be here. Angie, you may note that I don't have a suit.
Yeah, that means I did notice.
That means I'll be listening to you.
No, you mean Russell?
Yeah. Well, morning, good morning, Andrew, and to your listeners. I must say I'm a little disappointed. I really thought Russell was going to be here this morning.
No, it's not his show.
Russell is not here. And I suspect Russell did not come because he probably thought I'll tell listeners the real reason why he always wants a car with a very large trunk. But he's not here today for me to expose him.
You'll tell me after the show.
I also suspect he doesn't want me to answer his questions about DSH, but I'm sure he's listening, and I'm sure I'll be back on the program to say all that I can say about Russell.
Yes, but whatever comments he made them on Outgoes In. So this is what makes me mad.
Well, tell him invite me to Outgoes In.
This is my show.
Have a very frank and open discussion.
This is my show. All right, good. So, gentlemen, as I said, it's a pleasure to have you both here today. And we're talking about, as I said, the controversial DSH development. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Pierre. Let's get right into it because we don't have much time. Hopefully, we can get some calls and so on a little later. We understand that this project was first proposed to a Labour Party administration. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So tell us what happened.
Well, you see, Russell, first of all, sorry, Andrew.
That's all right.
Andrew, first of all, before I start, I want to thank you for having me. And you see, I want to make it clear that the Labour Party has never been against investment or jobs. We've never been. If you look at the history of St. Lucia, you'll find that some of the most generous incentives ever given to investors were given by the Labour Party. You will also note that between 2001 and 2006, there was is a time in St. Lucia's history when there was the largest increase in investment in hotels, etc. So, to make the point that the Labour Party is annoyed or wants to put a halt to investment or jobs is something that I want to dispel very early. The Labour Party is not against it. In fact, the Labour Party dealt with the transition of the economy from bananas to services. Because you may recall, between 1999 and 1997, the economy had to go to that rapid adjustment. And from 1997, that adjustment became even more clear because of the events in Europe, etc. So the Labour Party dealt with the transition of the economy. In fact, the former Prime Minister was criticized when he said that the economy was in transition. And that transition entailed incentives for investments in tourism, etc. So the party is not against investment. It's never been. It will not be.
So, Mr. Pierre, why do you think you need to, put that proviso in there that you're not against investment? Isn't it obvious that you're not against investment?
No, because part of the arguments have been used against us that we've been against all projects, which is basically not true. Anyhow, let's move on. The DSH investment is not an ordinary investment. It's an investment that involves 900 acres of land. That is no ordinary investment. So anything of that magnitude will fundamentally transform the lives of the people in the Vieux-Fort and the lives of the people in St. Lucia. So you can't just sit down and say, listen to me, it's just another investment and the Labour Party must just wait and let the government do or say what they want.
Has the government said that, Mr. Pierre?
That's the first point.
But hold on. Has the government said that?
But the government
that allow us to do what we want.
Yes,
I haven't heard that.
What the government is saying is that wait. Now, first of all, I noticed we have a slight paradigm shift. All before 2016, it was don't trust politicians. Make politicians show you the truth. Let them show you facts. That was the logic and the discussion before 2016. From June 2016, some of us have changed the discussion. Give him a chance. If he says so, let's wait and see that happens. But before, it was let politicians, don't trust them. Anything they tell you, show them the proof. Anyway, let's go on. Now, what is happening now is that the government has signed 2 agreements. The Prime Minister, by his own words, and I want, again, before I move on, to make the point about how important the Prime Minister's word is. You see, the Prime Minister is the leader of the country, and whether he's Labour or UDP, he's our Prime Minister. He's the Prime Minister of the country, and his word means a lot. The Prime Minister signed 2 agreements, and by his own admission, these 2 agreements were authentic, by his own admission, and he intended all the time to put these agreements in the public view and the public domain. Now, we have some fundamental issues with these 2 agreements. Fundamental issues. Anyone who tries to oppose us, they never quote the agreement. Only what they quote is word of mouth. Some of them say that they haven't even read the agreement, but they quote word of mouth and they say to you, let the Prime Minister's word prevail. What I'm saying to you, I have no problems with the Prime Minister's word once it can be backed up by fact. And what is in that agreement, which was the agreement that the investor proposed to us, after some changes, we believe is wrong, and the Labour Party will not sit idly by and allow that agreement to be inflicted on the people of St. Lucia.
But, Mr. Pierre, hasn't the government made it very clear that they're willing to listen to the people?
How?
Including the opposition?
What is the evidence?
Well, they did speak about the fact that the Makoti mangrove, as one example,
Have we seen any documents of that? Have you seen any? Is there anything that you've seen that says that is true?
So, are you saying then that you don't believe?
I am saying that based on the criteria I've set for politicians in the country, where people were made to believe politicians, you must show them the proof. I'm saying such an important thing, the Prime Minister must be transparent and show us the facts, because we've seen that he's said several things that ought to happen and did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our point is, okay, or to make a long story short, let the document come to the House, like the Hess Agreement, and let us discuss it, because no one, if the opposition goes to the Parliament of St. Lucia and opposes without any good reason a document that will create so many jobs, that will transform St. Lucia, that would be suicide for the opposition. And I want to tell you very quickly, we are not afraid for investment for Vieux-Fort, because the government has tried on several occasions to take the South from us. History is replete of examples of that. We're not afraid of that. What we are afraid of is the annexation of Vieux-Fort and the people of Vieux-Fort being marginalized to being second-class citizens in their own area.
Now, Mr. Pierre, I just want you to explain to us, okay, since you're not against development and so on, and you're making that very, very clear, why didn't your administration, at the time when this project was being proposed, why didn't you grab it?
Because, for the point I made earlier, we thought that it was a bad agreement and that it cannot be development at all costs.
Yeah, but the government is saying they're in a negotiation process.
The government can't say that because the government has signed 2 agreements, which the Prime Minister has agreed he signed.
Yeah, okay, I understand. I'm saying to you, they're saying that they're negotiating. That is what they're saying publicly.
So
okay,
why did they sign the agreements?
Well, exactly. I think the first agreement that the Prime Minister said he signed
2.
Right. And the first one had to do with the racetrack, right?
No.
Well, I think you better enlighten us on those agreements. Mr. Hilaire, just come in there.
In the agreement. You see, that agreement doesn't only say racetrack.
So Mr. Pierre,
the people of St. Lucia,
Mr. Pierre, hold on, Mr. Pierre.
Agreement that says racecraft. That's just the Prime Minister's word.
Hold on, Mr. Pierre.
Yes.
You're saying that your administration didn't grab this development because you didn't like certain things in there.
We didn't like many things.
Right, many things. Couldn't you have done exactly what this administration is doing, which is to negotiate?
We were, but we didn't announce. We did not announce in public, because you see, the Prime Minister's word is an important word.
But Mr. Theo Aking said he didn't hear anything. But Mr. Theo Aking, on his last visit here, he said he heard nothing from your administration.
That is, I don't want to go into, you see, even though this, personally I've never mentioned Theo Aking's name. I don't get involved in personalities. I get involved in facts. Fact is, an investor is discussing with the government. The government has a right. It's a negotiation. It's you said this, I said that, and let's come to a compromise. The Labour Party was not convinced that we'd reached an adequate compromise, so we could not come to public with it.
But you're saying that you were in negotiation with the gentleman, no? You're not hearing?
Hearing you now. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So the Prime Minister and the Minister for Investment, I'll get to Mr. Hilaire right now, said that the only thing that has been signed so far is the racetrack, okay, that agreement. You're talking about, he signed 2 other agreements. What agreements are we talking about?
Okay. Andre, let's take it step by step by step.
Please.
And I notice you're taking your notes, so let's take it step by step. You're right, and the political leader explained, we started negotiations. We spent many months negotiating with a very difficult negotiator. From the start, we realized...
When you say difficult negotiator, what do you mean?
Okay, you have different cultural ways in which people negotiate. Some people are more accommodating. Some people go for win-win. Some people try to get all in their favor, nothing for you. And if you soft, you give in, and they take everything and they smile and they believe because they win and you lose is a good negotiation. So there are different styles of negotiation. It was a very bullish negotiation. The developer wanted everything, and we had a difficulty with that. And we had some very intense negotiations. Then elections came. And within 6 weeks, the new government signed this agreement. So we're now asking ourselves, wait, how come for months we could not come to an agreement with this negotiator? There are things he wants in there that no government must ever sign.
Would you like to share those things with us?
Yeah, I'm coming to it.
Okay.
I'm coming to it. And then within 6 weeks, the new government signed it. So the first thing we did was to have a press conference. And we said, wait. We support jobs. We really wanted a project like that. Now, at that time, the project was a racetrack with a 5-star hotel and casino. Because when the developer first came, he wanted to build a racetrack. And he wanted to be funded by CIP. And we said, no, that cannot work. CIP does not allow racetrack to qualify. You have to have a 5-star international hotel. So if you want a racetrack, you have to build a 5-star hotel and bring with it a racetrack. And then we can start discussing CIP terms and conditions. And we started to negotiate that with him. And then he came up and said, you know what, based on his research, he thinks the South needs a marina too. So we said, fine, let's expand the project, present something to us, which he did. Then elections came. So we said, we know what this gentleman wanted as terms and conditions from the start. How could any government sign that? So we called a press conference, and we asked about 10 questions. The government never responded, kept silent. Then Richard Frederick licked the agreements. He then licked it. And when we reviewed the agreement, we saw all the things we did not agree to in the first place. We saw things we had convinced him to throw out. He brought it back in, and they were signed by the new government. Now, later on, I'll explain to you that before the government had signed that agreement, the Prime Minister had given a comfort letter to Mr. Tio. So he had found himself trapped where he had made promises, so he had no choice but to sign the agreement. So then we looked at the agreement, and I've shared with you a document. If you look at it, you will see 18 clauses.
I'm sorry, a comfort letters binding? You have a problem hearing again?
Yeah.
Are you okay now? No?
Yeah, we hear you now. It's breaking.
Okay. Yes. Still not hearing? Oh my God. I hope we're back again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. I was saying, in terms of comfort letters, are these letters binding?
We'll come to that, Andre, because remember the Robert Ainsworth letter was presented in the House and was being touted everywhere as something binding that Kenya Anthony had signed, but we'll come to that shortly. You will see on that document, and I want you to take a look at it, 18 clauses we had difficulty with and what we recommended as alternative clauses. But let me give you the big 7. The big 7 that we had a problem with. The $1 per acre. The buyback clause, the scale of the project, the exclusive rights given to DSH, the security of investment, the escrow account, and the real elephant in the room, the inclusion of a gross domestic value in that agreement. Now, they're 18, but I give you the big 7. I don't know if you even focus on the one called security of investment, because that one, clause 18.1, is a very serious one, because in that clause, we're committing that we will not do anything in this country or not do something that we are required to do that the developer believes is affecting the viability of his project. He says in the agreement he has the right to sue us for damages or take legal action against the government to stop it. That's in the agreement, 18.1. So we had 7, I just give you 7 big clauses, and you have a copy of the agreement before you. You can look at it. You can look at the 18 clauses we had problems with, and you can look at the 7 big clauses I just mentioned. Let me just go over them again. The $1 per acre, the buyback clause, the scale of the project, the exclusivity given to the DSH project, the security of investment, the escrow, and the gross development value. And I want to come back to the gross development value, Andre, because at the end of the day, that will be a major, major issue that has to be overcome. So Richard then licks the document. And once Richard licks it, public discussion erupts now, because it's not Labour Party who just lose an election who is asking the government a set of questions. People now have a document in their hand that they can read. Now, some people have not read the document, and I think I heard your good friend Russell and my friend Russell said he's not read it yet, whatnot. I will leave a folder with a copy of the agreement in here for him, so when he goes in, he can read the document. But, Andre, the Prime Minister is first asked on 21 questions to confirm the veracity of the documents that are out there. And he says, you know, we are a transparent government. We'll have always put it out there. We'll have always put it, so I'm okay with it. He never said it's not authentic. And then somebody said, people are saying we did not put it out there because of a confidentiality clause. He said, when you read it, you'll see there's no confidentiality clause. And then somebody placed on Facebook, but hey, there is a confidentiality clause, Prime Minister. And that's the start of the problem. The Prime Minister has lost all trustworthiness and all transparency and accountability, because he says one thing and it is proven otherwise. And I will give you multiple examples. And that is why people are so skeptical about DSH. Because the Prime Minister says one thing and the political just said it. And then reality shows to be something different. And it gets graver every time. So the first one, he said there was no confidentiality clause. And then he was proven to be wrong. But he never said it was not authentic. They never said what Richard Frederick had was not authentic. Honorable Bradley Felix quoted from the document and said, I too don't agree with the buyback clause. But he signed it, huh? He never said it was not an authentic document. But it was supposed to have been authentic. Then they released a fact sheet, which I've given you a copy of. The fact sheet is supposed to correct interpretations of the agreements they signed, which they now say is not authentic. But when you look at the fact sheet, it is more erroneous. And you're wondering, but wait, what kind of PR is that? And y'all are undermining the credibility of the project, the credibility of the government, because you are saying things that people can take agreements and see what you're saying is not true. So that's a big issue. I know we don't have a lot of time, but let me just point out to you a few things about the inconsistencies in what the Prime Minister has said on this project. And on Thursday with Rick Wayne was one of the most telling interviews and one of the most destructive interviews. Because obviously Rick Wayne had a particular script, but the Prime Minister was on a different script. Or rather, the Prime Minister was speaking maybe some reality he knows. The Prime Minister said that somebody from the National Trust called Buckingham Palace and said, do not allow the Prince to take part in the Southern because there is no approval for it. And Clem Bob had to rush to the Governor General's residence and show all the approvals for the project. That was the end of November. On January 5th, the Prime Minister says, Phase 1, cast in stone. By next week, I expect DCA to give all the approvals. By the end of November, Clem Bob had gone to the GG's residence and had provided all the approvals of the DSH project to the GG that allowed the Prince to take part in the Southern ceremony. But on January 5th, the Prime Minister is now saying that he has finished the DSA agreement. For Phase 1, it's cast in stone, and he's hoping DCA will give approvals, which is correct. Now, listen to that, it goes further. The Prime Minister who said on January 5th that it is cast in stone already. Now, when something is cast in stone, Andre, that means everything is settled, all T's crossed, all I's dot. And Rick then says to him, so, you know, stage 1 is cast in stone. And the Prime Minister says, well, we've not finalized the agreement yet. And Rick asks him, what do you mean you've not finalized the agreement? Because Rick has the script. And then he says, well, we're still negotiating the final details. And Rick says, but you said it's cast in stone. He said, well, Cabinet has approved it. You say, well, what do you mean Cabinet has approved it? Because you're saying it's cast in stone. You say you're not finalized the agreement. Now you're saying to me, Cabinet has approved it. He said, well, Cabinet has approved it as a project that we said is okay, we'll go ahead with it. So Rick asked him, is it CIP approved? He then says, well, it's not yet CIP approved. But remember, it's cast in stone, huh? It's cast in stone. And then he makes a shocking statement. And I can play the clip for you. Pinkley Francis, and I don't want you to believe that I'm misleading your caller. So if you give me permission, I will play the clip for you so you could hear it.
The developer,
now that's Pinkley Francis,
the project, which is the race course, is funding the entire Phase 1.
The entire Phase 1 on his own cash.
There will be no CIP, and that is very clear. There will be no CIP contribution for Phase 1 of the project, which is primarily the race course.
He's putting his own money into the horse racing track.
All the work that's taking place right now and all the work until the completion is being paid for by the developer.
So the whole construction of the race course and so on is not going to be paid out of proceeds from passports or anything like that?
It will, but not at this point.
I don't know.
Now, you heard Rick say, I don't understand. So on Wednesday night in Vieux-Fort, Pinkley Francis said phase 1 is no CIP at all. And if you look at the supplementary agreement you have, it actually says the race course is not going to be funded from CIP. Rick Pinkley Francis announced that in a press conference. The Prime Minister on Wednesday night, after we had our protest march, and he had his protest march, I don't know why you're in government and you're having a protest march, but you have a protest march for jobs. So he had a protest meeting in Vieux-Fort, and he says the developer is putting up all the money up front.
Hold on a second. I thought that that march that took place in Vieux-Fort was organized by a separate group of people, not the Prime Minister.
We could debate that. We can debate whether today is, Thursday or today is Friday, but it is what it is. So let's say it was a separate set of people.
Okay.
Let's say that for all intent and purposes. But all those separate people happen to have been in the meeting later. So the Prime Minister says on Wednesday night in Vieux-Fort, all the money for phase 1 will be put up by the developer. But on Thursday on Rick Wayne, he says he's upfronting. He's providing the money, but he has to get it back from CIP. But he goes further. He says that the racetrack will not make money, Andre. And Rick incredulously looks at him. What do you mean by this? He said racetracks like golf courses don't make money. Now, I don't know where he gets that from, that golf courses don't make money. But he says it doesn't make money. And assuming he's right. And then, but why are you building a racetrack if it's not going to make money? He says, because it's a bait. It's the bait Mr. Tio is going to use to bring investors to St. Lucia. So you're building a racetrack that will not make money because you want a bait to bring the investors. But who's paying for the racetrack? Pinkley said, Mr. Tio. The Prime Minister said, Mr. Tio. And you assume if a man want to put out cheese to attract rats, he probably will buy his own cheese. But then the Prime Minister tells Rick, no, it's our CIP money not paying for the bids. So a developer has this magnificent project. He wants to bring investors to, and he needs bid to bring them, but he wants us to pay for the bid. He's going to put his money up front, but I want you to give it back to me through the sale of passports. Now let's talk a bit about the sale of passports, because that's where it really gets interesting. Really gets in. Just give me a couple more minutes. The developer has no intention of putting money. There's something called gross development value, and let me just explain that to you in a simple way. If somebody is coming to build a hotel in Sunshine through CIP, Andre, and he tells you the cost of building the hotel is $100 million, I have 40 million equity. I need 60 million from CIP. Based on our investment level of 300,000 K for an investment, you will tell him, okay, I'm going to give you 60 million by 300K. Say you're going to say, how many is that? Say 50 passports, whatever. And you'll give it to him so he can sell it. He can raise his 60 million and add to his 40 million equity, he builds a hotel. But if he comes to you and he does not tell you gross construction costs, but instead he tells you gross development value, which is a retail value if he's going to sell it. But he tells you it's 200 million. 200 million. But you only have 40 million. So you now have to give him passports for 160 million. So you give him all those passports, he sells it, he has 200 million. He builds a hotel for 100 million. The next 100 million is profit in his pocket. Even before he starts operating the hotel, he has 100 million in it. Now, if he tells you, I'm going to build a golf course next side, and I'm putting most of the money for it, I'm putting in 60 million. But that 60 million, remember, is coming from the 100 million profit he made already. So he put no new money of his in the hotel, not the golf course. He'll build a hotel, he'll build a golf course, and still have 40 million profit, and all of it come from, your passports. That's what this developer is doing. So the Prime Minister betrayed it when he said the money is up fronting, but then he's going to get back the money later on through our passports. So this developer is coming to do phase 1. He's going to put some money to get it started, but he's getting back all the money from our passports. And more so, when phase 2 comes and he has to put equity, he's made profits from phase 1 already that he's going to use to put as equity. So he's not putting any money of his own at all. And that's one of the major issues we have with this development, that somebody who's an exceptionally gifted architect and designer, but a very smart man, has conned our government, and our government signed an agreement for all those things. And I'm not saying the Prime Minister is not trying to negotiate his way out of it, I'm not saying he's not, because the Prime Minister had written a comfort letter to Mr. T.O. before he even signed those notorious agreements. He signed, and I read from it, where the Prime Minister is agreeing or proposing or stating an intent to allow thoroughbreds to qualify as a CIP investment. Now, Andre, let me just explain to you. When you have a qualifying investment in CIP, you can resell it after 5 years to make a profit, because that's why it's an investment. I invest in the country, I hold investment for 5 years, I get citizenship, after 5 years I can unsell my investment. A horse depreciates. After 3 years of horse racing, a horse goes into retirement. How does a horse become a qualified investment? How do you resell a horse after 5 years? Unless if it is a stud and it is going to be used for breeding. The horse can die after 2 years. You're not buying no investment that depreciates over the 5 years. Why would you agree to make a thoroughbred a qualifying investment? Why? But he had said so in his comfort letter before he signed the agreement. Now, you know what's even thing on that point I want to end? The Prime Minister, I know based on the process for CIP, it has to be reviewed by Invest St. Lucia. It has to be reviewed by CIP. From information I've gotten, I've heard, out there in the market, Invest St. Lucia has rejected it, rightfully so, because any right-thinking accountant, business person who reviewed that business plan will never agree to it. CIP unit has rejected it, and even CIP board has rejected it. But remember, Cabinet has approved it, according to what the Prime Minister says. So the professionals in their rightful judgment, they're not against jobs, and I've worked with every single one of them previously, and I know the kind of way in which they analyze and the kind of commitment they have to their work. I could not see them agreeing that CIP business plan, that DSH business plan. So they rejected it. So Invest St. Lucia rejected it, CIP rejected it, because it's a con. Now, there's also the final problem I have with DSH, and it's my personal beef with DSH.
When you say it's a con by who? The developer?
Well, okay, let's say a smart move, because I don't want to be derogatory. Yeah, it's a very smart move. Andre, is the concept of the DSH, the concept of the DSH. Why do we believe if we have to develop the South or any part of Central, it must be skyscrapers looking like a little Dubai or a little Singapore, Andre? Why can't we be chic, sophisticated and charming as a destination? Look at the south of France, Italy, many parts of the world, high value, high-end visitors go there. Thousands of people go there every year because the places are charming. They have personality. Why can't St. Lucia be like that? The Prime Minister stopped the square in Soufre because he said it had no charm. It was not reflective of the history and the personality of St. Lucia. But then a developer comes and shows you a little Dubai and tells you he's going to build little Dubai in Vieux-Fort. And Vieux-Fort is a ghetto and he's going to make it pull out the Caribbean. And everybody's wow, causeway, high-rise buildings, skyscrapers. Is that the St. Lucia we want? So apart from the terms and conditions, apart from the business plan, I have a problem with the concept of transforming St. Lucia to 40-story tall buildings. And all those high skyscrapers, from what we're told, going to employ 3,000 people. Really makes me wonder who will be the people working in Vieux-Fort. But anyway, I think I have given you...
I had the Minister for Investment here last week, and he was saying that the government is willing to listen, right, to all the concerns being expressed by the people, by the opposition, interest groups, etc., etc. Don't you believe that? I from the way you speak, I gather that you don't believe that they're actually willing to listen.
No, we can't, Andrew, because the government abuses you anytime you open your mouth. You get abused. You know, I'll tell you something.
When you say abuse,
I'll tell you something. Just before I answer the question, we have about a partnership. We have a partnership with the investor. Clause 28 of the agreement, it says clearly no partnership. Page 19 of 20, clause 28. Nothing in this agreement is intended to or shall be construed as establishing or implying a partnership of any kind between the parties. So what the agreement says, listen to me, you see you, I am a partnership with you, What I have is a business agreement, and my security of investment clause will have to kick into effect if that doesn't happen, because I don't have no partnership with you. So the idea that the guy loves us so much He loves St. Lucia so much, and he's coming to have a partnership with us. That agreement is clear that there is no partnership between the two parties.
Are you happy with the agreement which has been signed so far? The Prime Minister says only for the racetrack. Are you happy with that agreement so far?
But what's the agreement? After the Prime Minister announced that, we asked about 10 questions. And I'm just saying to you, we've not seen any agreement. But based on what the Prime Minister said on RIC, we cannot accept that, Andre. How can you accept an agreement in a racetrack that says the racetrack is not going to make a profit, that we must pay the construction costs, that's what the Prime Minister said on RIC, pay the operational costs, that he's going to manage it, but we must give him back the money from the sale of our passports. Why would you sign an agreement for a racetrack where the gentleman is saying to you, I want the land at $1 an acre for 99 years. It's not going to make money. I'm going to put in X amount of money to build it and maintain it, but St. Lucia must give me back my money through the sale of passports. Why would you sign such an agreement? And worse, Andre, he's going to make you give him back enough money that he has a profit that he can now start phase 2. Why would you sign that agreement? Andre, think about it. I mean, this is absolute madness. Now, you ask about the government listening, Andre. First of all, and the political said it, based on all the evidence I've given you, Clem Bob. Oh, let me also tell you, you said about the mangrove. This is another one. The Prime Minister came out and said, you know what, we took off the mangrove from the supplementary agreement because it's environmental sensitive, blah, blah, blah. You know what the Prime Minister came after a few weeks to say? We took out the mangrove not because of any environmental reasons, but because of the leak from the dump that was going down there. If we can find a way to solve that, we'll put back the development that was in the mangrove. He said so. So you start to wonder, do I ever really believe what the Prime Minister says? And the political has said it. The Prime Minister word is supposed to be the binding statement of the government and people of St. Lucia. So you're saying one thing now, and you're saying a totally different thing. But you know what? The government obviously is listening, because every time we speak and we show shortcomings of the agreement, they know what it is they must try and work on. But the difficulty is they put themselves in a bind. They cannot get out of the SH. Why would you sign phase 1, Andre? Why would you sign phase 1 where the Prime Minister said to Rick Wayne, I'm not making it up, go and listen to the tapes, the racetrack will not make a profit. It is the bait, is the cheese. You sign a cheese with a foreign developer that's putting up his money up front, but you must give him back all the money. Let me explain to you this thing again. 2.7 billion. 2.7 billion. At our investment levels of 300,000 K, that's just over 9,000 applications. If each application is a family of 3, that's 27,000 passports and citizenships we must give. Because he has asked, and I have the business plan here. I can't give you a copy, but I can show it to you. I have his business plan here. It was going to be entirely funded by passport sales. That's 27,000 passports. The Prime Minister on Rick Wayne also announced, I'm doing away with the 300,000 K. It's now only donation. Donation is 100,000. 2.7 billion divided by 100,000 is 27,000 applications. If each application is 3 persons, that's 81,000 citizenships or passports we must give out for that project alone. How can you sign the DSH to be CIP 100%? And that's what the developer is asking for. So let's argue he's not getting everything one time. He's going to get phase 1, then phase 2, then phase 3. Why would you ever agree to phase 1? And you openly telling the nation with no shame that it's not going to make money, that he's putting the money up front, but we must give him back his money through the sale of our passports.
Before we take some calls, I need to ask you something to clarify something first. Our understanding is that from the Prime Minister, only one part of the agreement is a done deal.
That's phase 1.
Yeah, phase 1. But you spoke about, when you started the program this morning, about 2 agreements. So what 2 agreements are we talking about?
Now that's an excellent question. But let me just answer. Remember that same phase 1 he said on January 5th is cast in stone? He said to Rick on Thursday that he's still negotiating, huh? But he said it was cast in stone. And he said to Rick Wayne on the program that they're still finalizing the terms and conditions, but Cabinet has already approved it. Now, you're finalizing the terms and conditions when Cabinet has already approved it. And when the Prime Minister said that on Thursday, he knows CIP had rejected it, and Investor Lucia had rejected it. But you're still saying, in the same sentence, it's cast in stone, but we're still negotiating the final details. I don't know how the 2 can reconcile. Now, you asked me about
the 2 agreements. Yeah.
Andre, that's one of the most shocking things. Because when we saw the first agreement, we said, yeah, that looked like the agreement they were negotiating it first. But they've brought in the $15,000 clause. Well, let me give you that one. I've not even brought that one up. In the first agreement, every CIP that is sold, the government can get fees. Under that agreement, every CIP of his he sells, he gets all the money, plus the government $15,000 fees. Huh? It's in there. Well, if I start talking about the escrow account, is another issue altogether. So he's getting both the $300,000 plus the government fees. So we were looking at this agreement and we're saying, but where are all those things? Where is that coming from? And all things. Okay. But then we've seen a supplementary agreement. Somebody, sends a supplementary agreement, for us to see, because I think Richard had leaked it. And in that supplementary agreement, they're giving LP Rata, they're giving Sandy Beach, they're giving the stadium lands. And hear what you're saying. Hear what the Prime Minister said. We're not giving him the stadium, and Labour Party saying, we give it to him so he can give it back to us. Now, what does that mean? How do you give somebody something for him to give it back to you? Now, if you say you want to develop the areas around the stadium, then why give him the stadium? I mean, why are you giving somebody the stadium? That's not making sense. In a supplementary agreement, it makes the first agreement even worse, because the first agreement did not speak of the vast expanse that the project is now. It's the supplementary that does that. The supplementary worsen the first agreement. It now gives away El Pirata area. It gives away Sandy Beach. It gives away the stadium area. That's what the supplementary agreement is. As if the first agreement was not bad enough. But you realize in the first agreement it was signed by the Prime Minister and Bradley Felix. But the supplementary is now signed by the Prime Minister and Pinkley Francis. You could look at it. I have a folder there for you. I can give you everything as evidence. And I want you to just always have it by you. Because when people are saying a lot about the agreement, ask them, have you read the agreement? Have you read it?
I have so many questions to ask, but we don't have much time left, and I also want to take some calls. Our number is 451-7260. We have live in studio the leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, alongside MP for Castries South, Dr. Ernest Hilaire. We're talking about the DSH project. We'll take a call in just a second. I want to ask you, in terms of your plans, leader of the opposition, what do you plan to do now to deal with this situation? Because you're unhappy with it.
Well, in our last press conference, we said three things. We said, number one, we're going to seek to engage the government directly. I'm going to write a formal letter to the Prime Minister outlining our concerns and telling him we're ready to speak to you. You refuse to speak to us in Parliament, we want to speak to you. He's going to hear that from me very shortly.
Even like a private meeting?
A meeting, yes.
Right.
He's going to because the propaganda is the Labour Party is against. The Labour Party is not against. The second option I'm going to give him is we're going to be speaking to all the partners in the society, Chamber of Commerce, the media, National Trust, to tell them to voice to them our concerns. We're going to be going to the communities again to speak at the town hall meetings, at public meetings, to tell people again our concerns. And the next option would be another set of protest action. But that's going to be the last option because we want to dialogue and want to speak. But I want to tell you something about the lands, because again, in the supplementary agreement, in point 27, it says, where applicable, the government agrees and undertakes to pursue the acquisition of all privately owned parcels of land within the project site, and to transfer these parcels to the master developer in accordance with the applicable compulsory acquisition laws of St. Lucia at the applicable acquisition price in line with the proposed planning schedule as it is in Exhibit 5. So what the government is committing itself to take people's lands, private lands, to acquire it compulsory. Yes, I mean, people. I don't think people. When people criticize us, and I don't think people have read the agreement. The government is committing in 27 to acquire people's lands, private lands, and people who've lived there all their life. Take it.
But what we're being told is that this is a framework agreement. It is not cast in stone. We're being told that. In other words, now all these concerns that you are raising, right? Interest groups and so on, and rightly so. The government is saying we're willing to listen to you. Even the developer is willing to listen to make changes.
But they've started work on the race course. They have tractors in the race course, and when people they send the police.
No, but
they started working on the race course.
Andre, no, any agreement can be renegotiated once the two parties agree to change it.
Right.
So saying to me that's a framework agreement. Now remember when they started off, they said it's a framework agreement, it's not binding. Then the Prime Minister obviously has been advised, no, you cannot say that. He says at the Chamber of Commerce event, it's binding, but we can change it. And that's true, you can change any agreement, Andre. You can change any agreement once both parties agree to it.
Right.
Now, why would you sign an agreement that in it has arbitration clauses? You know what that means? If one party decides not to make the change, there's a process to reconcile it. So the moment you sign an agreement and there's an arbitration clause or dispute settlement mechanism, what you are saying is that we may disagree on what's in there, and that's the process we will follow to resolve our differences. And that agreement has that in it. Now, that's not an MOU where people have an understanding of what they want to work towards. It's not a comfort letter. And you ask me about whether a comfort letter is binding. A comfort letter is not binding. It is a statement of the two of us are desirous of working towards something. But once you reach a point where you sign an agreement and it has a clause in it that says, if we disagree, that is the process we will follow to reconcile the difference. It means there's some element of binding in that agreement. But again, put all of that aside, Andre. Even if the government says, you know, we have so much pressure from the public, and there are certain things in there we need to change, and that's fair. And if the developer says, okay, I will change it, you still need to sit down and discuss it. But based on what we are being told, you have no reason to believe that the changes are meeting the concerns of people. Because on Thursday, the Prime Minister said they had, well, first he said it's cast in stone, and then he told Rick it's not CIP approved. He also told Rick they're still working on the details, but Cabinet has already approved it. And to explain that logic to me, how are you still working on the details? And that's Thursday night, huh? How are you still working on the details, but Cabinet has already approved it? And then CIP rejects the business plan of something that you've already approved. It is just a maze, and it's a set of confusion. But let's assume Cabinet had approved it. Let's assume all of that. How can you approve a project that you are saying phase one is not, the racetrack is not going to make money? The gentleman is going to spend his money up front to construct it. He's going to use his money to maintain it, which means the horse races, promoting horse races, prize money for horse races. All of that is going to make a loss. But we have to repay him later on. The Prime Minister said it. I mean, I can play it again for you. The Prime Minister says at some point later on we have to repay him all his money. So you sign an agreement to build a racetrack, knowing it will not make money, to maintain it and have horse races, knowing it will not make money, and St. Lucians must pay it back later on to the developer.
And,
okay.
And Andrew, I know that
we want to take some calls
on Sandy Beach. The idea of Sandy Beach. I know we get into problems on Sandy Beach. Let me tell you what the Supplementary agreement says about Sandy Beach, and it's clear. At the end there it says, and subject to the preservation of public access to the beaches where applicable. That is crossed and initialed. You understand? It is crossed. Public access to the beach. In that agreement, it is crossed and initialed by the two parties. So that agreement doesn't guarantee any public access to the beaches.
Wow. Anyway, let's take some calls. Our number is 4517260. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'm listening to Ernest Hilaire there. And I just wanted to ask him, I know he's speaking about DSH, but we still do not really know what was the really behind the Jufali scene. And I
don't want to go there, caller, please. Let's stick with the DSH.
I still wanted to know what was the reason why the Labour administration implemented the CIP, and isn't that selling our patrimony on a whole? So what they are talking about, to me personally, is just against themselves, because everything they're talking about, it was them who implemented it.
But caller,
the CIP is against they implemented.
Allow them to respond. Thank you.
I don't know if Ernest wants to speak about Jufali, but I can talk about CIP.
No, I don't want to talk about Jufali.
Well, you know, but because Ernest can speak about it if he wants to, but I'll talk about CIP. You know, again, that is the misinformation. We made it clear that the CIP was a tool for investment. And we made it clear that we're only going to give, the legislation says, only 500 passports per year. We also said that anybody who wanted to apply apply for a passport had to have a net worth of $3 million. And we also said that the price for investing was at a particular level. The government reduced all of that. So, that is just misinformation. Mm-hmm. We're not denying the CIP. What we're saying, that our CIP was CIP with certain conditions which the government has relaxed.
Okay, let's take some calls, please. Good morning.
Good morning, Auntie. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Yes, I'm happy that Mr. J. Pierre and the other gentleman have the copy of the signed or leaked document. I have a problem with one thing in there that they said. This Mr. Pierre, I've heard it from the other gentleman as well.
Dr. Hilaire.
Yes. The fact that has to do with the female radius. I've heard them say that will not be able to rear animals, pigs, cows, whatever, within a female radius. And then when the gentleman was on your show, they explained that it's a disease-free zone. But I've heard them said with my own two eyes and my own two ears that you will not be able to wear any kind of animals. But the thing actually says it's a disease-free zone, so I'm really not clear. So I want them to elaborate on that. Which part is it? Can they rear animals, or is it a disease-free zone for females?
Thank you. Mm.
Yeah. No, I mean, caller is a very simple concept, and our representative of Beaufort North, Honorable Moses Musa Jabatis, has done a lot of research on this. Because from the very first time the developer raised it, and the developer is an expert negotiator, he just threw out there, we'll need to have an equine disease-free zone. You say, okay, and whatnot. But when you do the research on what is required for an equine disease-free zone, you then realize this is a very onerous requirement. Onerous, and Honorable Jabatis has done a lot of research on it. According to international practice and standards, there are certain requirements as to what you can have within a certain radius of a racetrack and stables where thoroughbreds are kept. And it requires not, when they say it's disease-free zone, doesn't mean you can have all the animals there. They just must not have disease. They must not have disease, but you must not have animals that are likely to carry those diseases, because the horses are so vulnerable and so sensitive. Mm-hmm. So it's not a question of just saying, you need to have no disease. You must not create the conditions that will cause diseases to prevail in those areas. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go into all the details of equine disease-free zone, mm-hmm. but it is very onerous. And the question that we have asked is, can you tell us, since you have given an undertaking that you will have an equine disease-free zone, how it is you're going to implement it? Because there are farmers in Auger, in Opicor. How are you going to implement it? Because based on our research, mm-hmm. we know it's going to be very onerous to do. And that is. Let me just say one thing. Andrew, you said you didn't want to take any questions. I don't want anyone to believe that you're shielding me or anything. The geophilic matter is a matter before the courts. I will have my day when I will say all that I have to say. So I'm not running away from it.
Today we're talking about the DSH.
We're talking about DSH.
Yeah. Good morning, caller.
Andre.
Mr. Wayne, good morning to you.
I have to say, it's a hell of a day today. They have two politicians talking about me and not necessarily derogatory terms.
I'm not understanding what he's saying.
Rick, what? Can you speak a little louder, Rick?
And clearer.
Oh, you can't hear me?
And clearer. And I'm surprised that you having those issues.
Pardon me?
Go ahead, we're listening to you.
If you're not hearing me, it's not my problem. Huh? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I said it's a little bit surprising and uplifting to hear two politicians actually talking about me without any kind of nasty notions coming across. I have deliberately not participated in the DSH issue as I normally would participate in other issues. And I think I've said why a number of times. Everybody's on it. Everybody's on it. And I have my own issues that I am particularly interested in and will continue to be interested in. There's also the matter of the agreement, the framework agreement. My attitude to the framework agreement is this.
Rick, we're not here to discuss your attitude and so on. You have any questions for our guest today?
My goodness. You know how many
because we have little time. We have little time, Rick.
Can I invite Philip Pierre on my program?
Well, I think you can do that. So, Mr. Pierre, obviously you'll agree to that, right? Obviously. Rick, thank you very much for calling. Thank you. Mr. Pierre?
Rick will call me and we'll talk.
Okay, good. Let's take another caller. Good morning.
Mr. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm very well.
Mr. Paul, I have listened to the different versions on the CIP program, and I am convinced that you're getting the right version, the right view. Because as Mr. Hilaire said categorically clear that if you don't have money to have something and yet it will not make sense, why go through the process? And it is common knowledge, or it is alleged, there is one Jack Lim, allegedly wanted by the international people, and he's part of the same thing concerning the horses and so on. Mr. Pierre, do you know that? Have a nice day.
Well, I don't know that caller because I only have the word of the Prime Minister when he introduced Jack Lam. I don't know that. You see, that's what we say, We don't know anything. We only have words. And then these words are changed all the time. I don't want to come. Everything Ernest and I have said there are things that we can back factually, We haven't given any opinions, It's things that we can back factually. Our opinion is not what's important here, What's important here is that we have two things to deal with. The word of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister is the highest authority in the land. And two agreements. And a fact sheet from the government. That's all we have. We're not expressing any opinions. Ernest only expressed opinion when he said about what he thinks that the land use in there should be. He doesn't think it should be high-rise buildings. And that's something that we can discuss. And he said that his personal opinion. What we are discussing. And we want the people who criticize us to discuss with us two things. Just two things. The agreements that have been signed and the word of the Prime Minister. That's all we want to discuss. Okay. And we're free and open for that. We don't want to get involved in all the mepui and all the other things. We want to discuss two things.
Let's take a final call. Thank you, caller.
Boy, Andrew, good morning.
Morning.
I'm morning, Mr. Pierre and
Dr. Helen.
Now, briefly, I'm just going to make an opinion there. And this is an opinion to Pip and Ernest. You could see where this country will not go anywhere. You could see how politics has divided this country so much. So even in the big reasoning where taxpayers will be footing bills in sums of millions of dollars, the first caller you had there, hey, his point of view. Where are we going in this country? That is not what JPS said. I have read the document. And every Central has a right to read this document. And let us stop being partisan. Let us put this country first. It has nothing for this country with interest. It has only liabilities, and no investor should be allowed to get away with that type of agreement, Central. Let us rest this political division and let us put this little country first. What the gentlemen have said there is the truth. That is what is written. That is what has been signed. Why don't we just keep it black and just not black as pink? We are just being ridiculously stupid in this country by supporting this guy. Just make a boo-boo. Simple. Straightforward. The man should be arrested. For
Okay, caller. Let's leave that right there. I
wanted to say something to you, Andre. It comes back to the very first point you and the politically discuss about jobs. Because it comes down to how far will we go to attract jobs in St. Lucia? It's like, say you want to buy a new car, or you meet a new girl somewhere down in Strozella or whatever, yeah? And you have to decide what it is I'm going to give up to get something. Or Russell wants to buy a new car with an even bigger trunk, whatnot. What are the terms and conditions I will accept for me to do X, Y, and Z? It's something you desire, but are there any boundaries that you will not cross to get it? So the Prime Minister probably saw, look, an opportunity for me to do a project that Labour Party did not seem able to complete it. So I'm going to seize the opportunity. And seized it, and he made a very bad decision. Because if he had probably just asked Labour Party, just call in the former Prime Minister or anybody and said, why did you all not sign this agreement? And we had given him our 18 objectionable clauses. He probably could have made a more learned agreement. Look at the Ojo Labs. Andre, Helen IT has a call center. And I'm sure, I don't know the business dealings, but you can find out from your boss the difficulty of maintaining a call center like that. Ojo Labs, a foreign investor, comes to St. Lucia, wants to set up a lab. He asks the government grants to him to retrofit the factory shell for him. so it can host a call center, to pay all the monthly operational costs, electricity, water, IT costs. Pay $1,000 a month for 100 employees for 18 months. After that, pay $500 on the salaries of those persons, as many of them as there, for whenever. Give them concessions, including a boat. A boat have nothing to do with a call center. And you tell us that sound decision making because we're bringing jobs, we're creating jobs. Helen IT catching its royal, huh? And been struggling for years to employ significant numbers of St. Lucians, but cannot enjoy those concessions. And you tell us we're bringing jobs, Labour Party against jobs, they're against Ojo Labs. If we take that $2.7 billion in passport sales and we establish a national development fund and make those monies available to local entrepreneurs, you don't think they can be a lot more creative in what they can do for the South and the whole of Central if $2.7 billion US dollars than what Theo Akin is proposing? Seriously, Andre? Ask those questions. So we're not against jobs. We're against the mortgaging of our country, the future of our children, the sacrificing of our patrimony, because one investor showed some very flashy drawings. He showed me the same drawings, and we said to him, wait, it's not about drawings. Let's discuss the story behind the drawings. Because anybody can draw any beautiful picture. Anybody can dress nice with tight jeans and walk in front of you, and you're going to just give up everything you have because of that, Andre. And I'm sure you and Russell know that story very well. So it's a very serious case. We're not mortgaging our future and sacrificing our patrimony just because something looks beautiful. Let us study the story behind it. We're not supporting an Ojo Labs because of those conditions, and that is fundamentally what it is about.
And you see, and we believe that big is always right. Big is not always right, you know. There's a project in the Bahamas called the Bahama. It's a massive project. It's a $1.7 billion. It sounds good. Boy, look at money. What happened to it? There are 2 failed projects now in Anguilla. And you must understand, we have a history of these big projects, you know. You remember when we signed for a hotel, and we took land and we gave it to an investor, and he said he would build some, I think it's a Ritz-Carlton hotel. You know what happened? You and me and the taxpayers have to pay back $60 million worth from the government of St. Lucia. We have to pay that money. So big projects are not necessarily right. So you mustn't get blown by size. And finally, the Royalton Hotel is on less than 20 acres of land, and it employs 1,000 people. So why do you need 900 acres to employ 3,000? You have range development. Several hotels, yes, that employ Sandals. Sandals employs near 1,000 people. They're not on 900 acres of land. So how to employ 3,000 people? Why do you need 900 acres of land?
Mr. Pierre, before we end, I have to really commend you because time and time again, at every given opportunity, you keep bringing up this issue of the nice workers. Okay? And I want you now to weigh in on this thing as to how the government should have handled that situation from your perspective.
Thank you very much, Aditans. And it's an issue that's very close to my heart. Because you see, I have a constituency where people come to me every second with being unemployed. What I do not like is the callous nature in which it is treated. Oh, it's a contract. So because it's a contract, don't mind if you have your child at school, don't mind if you have your loans, it's a contract. So home is a contract. Secondly, what also concerned me in the nature of the treated is that the government in the parliament, one parliamentarian made the point, 90% of them are Labour Party supporters. So it doesn't really matter. So there'll be no political fallout because 90% of them are Labour Party supporters. Another parliamentarian said, oh, you're complaining about that, you just have to cry. Crying, just have to cry. So it meant that these people, because it was perceived that 90% of them were Labour Party supporters, they could be out of a job. What the government, and thirdly, in the home care program, which the government had discarded, but after pressure from us, they decided they would have it again. They sent home more than 90% of the people who were trained. They didn't say, okay, you are working there, let's say you have a contract. Let us ease you off. So you work for 6 months, we train another 6, and we kind of rotate it. 1 month for you, 1 month for some other person, and you can open up the thing. You have folks spoke about the Castries City Council. That's what we did. What we did is that we opened up. One guy had a contract for, let's say, $15,000. We split it into 3 and gave everybody 1 for 5. So there's been history on that. What hurts me is the callous nature in which they were treated and the almost boasting that, listen to me, all 90% of you all are Labour, it doesn't really matter. And it comes back to a pet peeve of mine, which is the vindictiveness of the government. The government always seeks. They do it to us. Members of Parliament said to us in Parliament, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. You understand? So it is a kind of history, a kind of aura of revenge. You all did it too. Oh, now you all know that. That's what the guy said in Parliament. So it's a revenge. We want to, you lost. Keep quiet because you've lost. And since you've lost, you have to pay for what we perceive that you did when you're in government. They say it all the time. It happens all the time. I think our party, my first statement as leader of the opposition was, we will work with the government what's right. I've offered the government to work with them on several things. We said we don't believe the Labour Party is just there to be in government. We have a role to play in opposition. But we do not believe that because people are perceived to be supporters of the Labour Party, they must be victimized and we must be disrespected because we are the Labour Party.
In your planned request with the Prime Minister, will you be bringing up the nice workers issue with him?
I have tried to bring it up in Parliament, because there is Parliament, There is a way where these happen. And let's get back to Parliament. We tried to get the CIP legislation debated in Parliament. The government aborted it. I mean, you must understand that, and then the government now refuses to appoint a deputy speaker. So because of that, Parliament has to go until the 40th of June. The government hasn't understood that they have won the elections and they have to govern the country. They're still in the mode of revenge. They're still in the mode of proving a point. They're still in the mode of attacking, as if they're in opposition. They are in government. They must raise the bar. And if the opposition is doing foolishness, the people will decide. The people have decided. The opposition has accepted the fact that we've lost the election. You don't hear us crying that we've lost. You don't hear us trying to play that to be in government. We've accepted the fact. But you cannot shut us up because we've lost the election. We will not be quieted.
Okay. Well, before we leave, I think my comrade Russell Lake is in studio too there because, Ernest, you kind of threw down the gauntlet a little earlier for Russell.
I won't tell you what Russell
gauntlet. Ernest, I want you to tell me, even everybody else, why do I like cars with large trunks?
Yeah, you sure you want me to say all this? Somebody tell me you always carrying live goods at the back.
Live goods. Now when I started it for Andre.
Ernest, I believe you. I know my partner very well.
So you see why Russell did not want to come on the program in case I had exposed him. But all right.
You catch my partner, Andre. I withdraw, but I put him in there. I shine in for you.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in here today. Of course, just before we leave, I don't know. I'm confused. When I think I understand one thing, then now you come here today. That's why it's always good, I guess, to have both sides of the debate. I don't know. Are you still confused, Mr. Hilaire, Mr. Leader of the Opposition? Because it sounds to me like it's a whole bunch of confusion.
No, we're not confused. We're clear. As I said before, our point of departure is very simple. 2 signed documents with the Prime Minister's signature, with Pinkley Francis' signature, with a guy called Mr. King's signature. That's the first point. The second point is the Prime Minister's word. That we're very clear on that, we have, our discussion is, we're not getting involved in any other thing, We're discussing the 2 issues. The highest authority on the land, his word, what he says on television, what he says in the public, what he says in the Parliament. He's the highest authority of the land. And we respect that. And the second one is the 2 agreements that have been signed. That's all we want to discuss. And once you can convince us that there are errors or we are wrong on that point, we're going to yield.
So you said the next move is to try to meet with the Prime Minister?
We're going to write the Prime Minister, we're going to express our concerns, and we're going to wait and see what happens.
Okay, and then you said if that doesn't work, you're meeting with the interest groups and so on?
Interest groups, and we're going to go to the public again, and if not, we're going to be back and protest.
All right. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. We have to end here. This has been What Makes Me Mad. My special guest today, the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, alongside MP for Castries South, Honorable Dr. Ernest Hilaire. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.